Welcome to our Corks Conversation II episode with M.E. Browning.
This will be, I think, the fourth episode that we featured either Mickey or one of her books. So I think that's a record. I'm not sure.
So.
It might be a record.
I think so. Regardless, it's pretty great. And we're really excited to talk to her again this season. Before we get started, let me have the pleasure of reminding our listeners about Mickey's background. It's pretty great. M.E. Browning served 22 years in law enforcement, and we thank her for her service. She retired as a captain before turning to a life of crime fiction. She served as a hostage negotiator, trained as a SWAT administrator. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, you should see how lovely and sweet she looks. When I say this, you're probably picturing somebody else. She supervised the administrative division. She coordinated the Citizens Police Academy, where she did meet a very quiet and lovely student by the name of Sue Grafton. That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that is cool.
Writing as Mickey Browning, she penned the Agatha-nominated and award-winning Mare Cavallo Mysteries. And Christie's getting one of those. Yes, there's Beach.
I'm holding it up.
Love that. And her short stories and nonfiction have appeared in anthologies and magazines and textbooks. As M.E. Browning, she currently writes the Jo Wyatt Mysteries, and I'm holding up last year's, which is called Shadow Ridge. I love the covers of her books. They're so beautiful. Shadow Ridge was the first in the series, and it was awarded the Colorado Book Award for Mystery and the silver medal in popular fiction category of the Florida Book Awards. Her second in the series is called Mercy Creek, and it just launched October 12th. So we're just fresh off of her book birthday. I will say I do want to share some pretty great reviews that Mercy Creek is getting. Kirkus Reviews called it a heartfelt procedural. Publishers Weekly said readers will feel like they're getting a glimpse into the real world of police work, as they should. And Drew's Book Musings called it an intensifying and grippingly enticing read. As you can tell, the pressure amps up, and it is a fantastic book. So we want to congratulate Mickey on her release and welcome Mickey to the podcast.
Thank you so very, very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And my dog wanted to welcome you as well.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah. Well, we're really, really happy to be you're here.
Thank you so much.
And I think first things first, we should talk about which wine we're drinking today.
Oh, well.
Do you have your wine here?
I do.
Mickey picked this wine. It's
it comes in a
1,000 stories.
Oh, I left my bottle in the kitchen, but I have this.
That's okay.
I have a very generous pour, I will say. I realized.
It's 12,000 stories.
Yes, and it's okay. Here, the little blurb on it. On the second half of the 19th century, explorers flocked to the America West in search of freedom and fortune, crafted their stories in mind. Prospectors Proof Cabernet Sauvignon celebrates the qualities of adventure and optimism. This rich, full flavored Cabernet Sauvignon expresses a pioneering spirit along with signature bourbon barrel notes of charred vanilla and dried herbs. That's 1,000 stories in itself. I think it's really good, though.
I like the title.
Mm-hmm. I do too. Cheers to you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Yeah, that is good, Mickey. Mm-hmm.
I'm just happy we're drinking a Cabernet again. That's our favorite, kind of a dark red. So
good.
And it's perfect for the weather here because it's very chilly. I don't know what it's like there.
Not chilly.
Very hot. Mickey, you're in Florida too, right?
I am, yes.
Yeah, so but it's beautiful out right now where I am. It's not storming, but
it's funny on the walk today that I took with my husband. I said, "Yeah, it's really comfortable." He goes, "It's 79." It's like
that is for us, honestly. Whenever it gets into with the 7, So like I'm going to visit Cathi soon, and
Mhm.
I can tell you right now that she's telling me 60s are the high, and I'm like, whoa, that's
Yeah,
freezing.
it's actually gone down a little bit. We're having
But
a big change today.
it's a little drier up there, I think. So it feels different. I think
Yeah.
60s down here feel really, really
It,
moistly chilly.
yeah, it's definitely not humid, but I'm afraid all of the leaves are gonna fly off today because we're having like
Oh,
30-mile-an-hour winds. I know, so that happens. Anyway,
yeah.
okay, so I'm so excited to talk with Mickey about her second in the series,
Yes.
Mercy Creek. Um, so it's been a year since we've talked to you, almost exactly, actually, I
Yes.
think. And I'm so curious to know what the life of the second in the series, what it's been like for this last year since Shadow Ridge was published, and you were, I assume, working on Mercy Creek. What was it like this last year for you, especially in the pandemic?
It was tough. If I hadn't had a deadline, I'm not sure that I wouldn't still be writing it. I mean, it's just,
Oh,
I had a good portion of it done by the time the first book, Shadow Ridge, came out. And so I was well into it, but I didn't have a lot of creative energy during the pandemic at first. And you get so overwhelmed. And I know that there were some people who thought, oh, I'm home, I've got all this time, I'm going to really buckle down, and this will be the time that I write the great American novel. I didn't have that. It was really tough for a while. And I have a great critique partner, and we seem to have bad days opposite each other, which was really, really good. But it came down to the fact that I saw, an impending deadline, and that was what made me realize that, I don't have a choice. I'm a professional author now. I've got a deadline. If I don't hit it, I'm really doing a disservice, not only to my own reputation, but to all of the other people who have already calendared this. They put it in a catalog. They're ready to go, and I don't want to be the weak link. So um, buckle down, and actually working under pressure like that, I'm really happy with the ending.
Hmm. Yeah, we're
did
not going to
you?
give it away, but
No, no, no,
No,
no.
no, no, no.
You didn't anticipate that ending while you were writing?
I knew some of how it was going to unravel, but no, there's a major twist at the end that I really didn't know was going to happen until a little bit before I got to that point. And it just
Wow.
seemed, it's like, I've got to do this. It's in my mind, because I knew all of the pieces in play. I knew it needed to be done. Whereas other people said, wow, I did not see that coming. So it's like, great, because it didn't just come out of thin air. I know
right.
everybody's backstory. So, it
Mhm.
just, it was the way it had to end.
So the saying for endings is that it needs to be not surprising, but also really satisfying. And I think it certainly met those. Like, it wasn't a shock to you when you're writing it, but the reader, man, you don't see it coming, which makes it so great. Plot twists.
Yeah, yeah. I know. We'll have to wait until we're off camera to be
I
able
know.
to.
We need an after show.
Yeah.
Because we've all read the book, and we do not want to spoil it for anybody. We would never
Yes.
do that.
No.
But that,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're gonna have to pick your brain a little bit later. You had mentioned about your critique partner. Can you tell us about that, how that works and what that's
Oh,
like?
I Serendipity came into play. I was working in Durango as a police captain at the time, and I went to like a goal setting seminar. It was just a luncheon, and I sat at the same table next to a woman, and we started talking. And I said, I've been looking for a writing group to join here. And she looks at me, and she like sits back. She goes, I just put an ad in the local newspaper today that I'm starting a writing group. And so about 7 people showed up. We're the last 2 standing. We're the only 2 who have been published. Her name is Mandy Mikulimchek, and she writes women's fiction, whereas I'm certainly in the mystery category. And it is a really good partnership, because we catch different things. You know, she's always telling me, you know, if she doesn't understand something, particularly when I was writing about scuba divers, because what's second nature to me isn't to everybody else, and she doesn't dive, so it was perfect. And you know, I'm always pushing her to go deeper, and she's amazing. She writes so lyrically, and so we've been critique partners for 11 years now, I think.
Oh, that's
Wow.
awesome.
Yeah, and we're in different states now, but you know, the beauty of the internet is that pages fly across, you know, the states.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's just, she's amazing, and I feel so blessed to have her, you know, as a writing partner.
Oh,
So
that's wonderful.
So during the pandemic, between your deadline, which you know, like you said, a professional writer meets their deadlines, then you also had your critique partner. So you had two things in your little pocket in the pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, she kept me honest too. There's you can't skimp with her, and thank goodness, because you know, there are times where, you know, you think, okay, this might be good enough. We'll see if she catches it. And it's like, and it's not, you know, if you think, well, we'll see if anybody picks up on it. That's not the way to do it. And, you know, and so we keep each other honest, and it worked out really well. I'm really happy with this. It was just reviewed in the Sun Sentinel, and it'll go out on the wires by Aline Cogdale, who is just a renowned mystery critic, and it got a really good review. So I must have done something right.
Yes.
It's a good
Yes,
day.
you did. It is a
It's-
good book.
yeah.
It is a good book.
It's a good day.
Yeah. And we're always happy to see more of Jo Wyatt. I mean, she's awesome. But in this case, the story deals with a missing child, which for one is a hard topic. And then on top of that, Jo has her history with the parents that goes back to her school days. So in this book, on your level, we see, you know, the police procedure stuff because of your background in in law enforcement, not criminal work, but
Yeah, you know,
law
I've been
enforcement.
around.
Yeah.
I've served time.
But I'm wondering, have you ever had a case of either a missing child or where you've had to investigate people you knew when you were working in law enforcement?
I started in
If you
Santa
can tell
Barbara.
us.
Yeah, well, there are no names, of course.
Right.
But missing children go missing all the time, and oftentimes it's a mistake in that you have a young child and you might think that they've wandered away, but they're asleep. I actually found a child one time. The bed was really messy, and all of the covers were just mounded, and the child was underneath the covers, but the parent was frantic. I mean, these are heart-wrenching cases when you get a missing child. Or the book opens at the Echo Valley County Fair, and children are constantly separated from their parents, and it's a fraught time for them because they don't know if somebody has walked away with their child. And we find them, you know, at the petting zoo or
Right.
something like that. And so
I've had those panics as a mother.
right. Heck, I remember I was left by my mom one time, actually, by accident, you know, and it was Christmas time, and the place had a reindeer you know, exhibit, you know, I don't know what else to call it. It was in front of a store, and then they loaded up the car and didn't do a head count of the kids.
Oh no.
You know, mom pulled out and came back. But that's a missing child if it's reported to
That's like Home Alone.
I know, right?
you know, it is, you know, do the head count. You know?
How many siblings do you have?
Just two. It wasn't a, you know. But you know.
Hey, we've all been
It
there. We've all been
happens.
busy
Yeah.
parents.
Everybody has been there. But so
Yeah.
fortunately, you know, and missing children, runaways are considered missing children as well. And so some of these are voluntary missings. And but it doesn't matter to the parent. You know, a parent is missing their child, and so the emotions are high. Oftentimes they're not in a good enough place to think things through logically, and so their search may be very haphazard. You know, duck in a room, they're not there, and you know, they're not looking under beds, they're not
Right.
It's amazing what a young child can get into and then fall asleep or something like that. And it happens. But they are fraught.
So what made you choose this topic for this one?
You know, I finished up my career in Durango, which is a smaller town than, you know, Santa Barbara, California, and it's a little bit more isolated. And I actually, to get to the setting of Echo Valley, I like to joke that if you erase 50 years, have the population, and squint, you've got Echo Valley. and I really wanted to explore the small town dynamics of the personalities. Everybody knows everybody else. Everybody knows where the bodies are buried, but everybody thinks you're going to let them get away with murder. And so I wanted to explore something that happened when Jo was in school, and then see what the repercussions would be all these years later. And so the most fraught way I could think about that, and I keep coming back to that word, the most emotionally conflicted subject matter that I could think of was a missing child. And if you have the parents who are no longer together and each have an agenda, suddenly you've got all of these possibilities that open up. And in small towns, everybody has their secrets. And it presented so many different opportunities for me to really delve into Jo's backstory as well through the eyes of other people, so that it wasn't just any sort of an info dump. People reacted to her based on what they had learned over the years. And so you have these very different mindsets and opinions of my protagonist. And so it was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, it was fun to read.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Yep. So
should we do it? I think it's time.
It's time.
Okay, so we're going to take a little break, take a little sip of our wine, and it's time for the question in a bottle, which is a question Christy's going to pull out of her carafe there.
Dang it, I forgot about this.
I was going to say, you don't remember this? And you know what? I can't remember what your question was, so I hope it's not like the same one. Okay, so it says, an app mysteriously appears on your phone that does something amazing. What does it do?
It puts all the commas in the right place.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, you know, how about just all punctuation? Just somehow knows it.
I can do okay with most of the other stuff. I know I'm done with revision when it's a matter of taking out a comma that I just put back in because I just had taken it out. Commas are my nemesis.
That's our my nemesis. That question tells you a lot about how you answer that question tells you a lot about what's on that person's plate right now.
Oh my gosh. Well, so we've already talked about how writing had changed, you know, your productivity, which I totally agree. Like if I had a deadline, I feel like I'd gotten more done, but I didn't. So I didn't get a lot done. But what were some of the habits or tricks that you had to use in order to get things done?
I had to stop doom scrolling. I really became a news hound. And it doesn't take very many news stories, particularly early in the pandemic, to really, your shoulders start to come down and you start to slouch, and suddenly all the weight of what is going on, all the things we don't understand yet, all the things
Right.
that we don't know how to cope with yet, and
And the election.
the
I
oh
mean,
gosh,
it
yeah.
seems like forever ago. It wasn't that long ago, and the pandemic's been going
Yeah.
forever. But
And no matter which side you're on, the divisiveness
yeah,
that I saw, I finally just had to just stop. And and which is, I like to be informed, I like being on top of the news, but at a certain point it was just counterproductive. And so once I stopped doing that, I was able to get into it again, and really focus on the words and the creativity. And then once you start to redevelop that habit, you one day's hard, 2 days might be even harder to get back in. But once you start, 3 and 4 days, suddenly you're back in that zone. You've got the story knocking around in your head.
so when you're in that zone, are you like Jo Wyatt, who can work 24 hours a day and just put it out?
No.
Or
Now that I'm retired, I really like my sleep at night.
now, when you were a detective, did you actually do that, like work all night? Or, I mean, there wasn't
there
any
were-
like unions telling you have to go home and sleep or something?
Law enforcement, there's a lot of unions. Not every place has unions, but when you're in the emergency services, if a major call comes in, it's yours. Now, the staff and everything will try at a certain point to start calling in the next shift and relieve you and things like that. But if it's a major event that's happening in your jurisdiction, you might find yourself on 12-hour shifts and everybody's working. If it's something that requires detectives to come out of the detective bureau and put on their uniform, they'll do that, and everybody's doing it, and wildfires, natural disasters, things like that, come to mind on that. But, detectives are often, they're there for a long time. If you have a homicide or something like that, where all of the detectives are on deck, or the majority of them, and again, we're talking a small jurisdiction here. So, there's some total of 3 detectives, 2 and a supervisor. You're gonna
So
pull
it's kind of all hands on deck.
yeah, you're gonna pull some hours,
Yeah.
and you catch up, or a hostage negotiation. I think the longest that I worked straight was 26 hours, and then collapsed for a while, and then was back pretty quick.
Wow.
But like you say, it's necessary. There's no checking out at that point.
There's no checking out. Look at the doctors right now. Well,
Yeah.
maybe not right now, but what
Yeah.
they
No, yeah, they are right now in Minneapolis. And
emergency services.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're the one on deck.
Yep.
So how, now that you're, as you say, retired from law enforcement, and you do have the somewhat more luxurious of a situation where you can dictate your hours a little bit, what is a day like for you?
I like to get up, have something to eat, otherwise I get really cranky, and and then hit the office. I'm fortunate enough where I have an office. I'm in it right now, and I like to create right off the bat before I start getting immersed in all of the other stuff that goes along with being an author. And I'll work for a bit, and then typically probably around 10 or so, go for a walk, shake it all out again, and then either come back to the story, because oftentimes I'll be working on a plot point on the walk, and sometimes I'll bounce it off of my husband, who's also retired. So we do that together. We walk together most of the time. And, sometimes just saying it out loud really actually illuminates what the problem with it is, or where it should go. And so it works, and then I can come back, and then then later in the afternoon I get sucked into the social media, and that that can be a rabbit hole right there. Coming from a law enforcement background, I'm not going to lie, I am not real comfortable with social media. I do like it as a way of communicating with readers and other authors, but if I didn't have to, I'm not sure that I would be there, particularly when you look at all the privacy issues.
Mhm.
Well, especially when you actually know the other end of it. Like,
Right. Yeah.
Most of us can imagine, but you actually know the other end of it. So
I
that's
never had an account until actually I left the police department. I didn't have MySpace. I didn't have Facebook. I didn't have any of that. And I was just fine.
Yeah, I think it's probably a lot healthier, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
we can't convince a lot of people of that.
right. But being an author, it's part of the gig. And
Oh yeah.
and really rightfully so, because
Mhm.
the way things are right now, if you didn't do that, you would probably disappear,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's one of the things, somebody wants to, oh, I heard about this good book, let me see what I can find out about it. And by it, then it branches off into, okay, who's the author, and or I want to say I like this, or I want to say, you missed the mark on this part, or because people will do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I want to tell you that today we had a few minutes, the three of us, before while we were getting ready, and I went on Amazon and looked up Mercy Creek, and which is for sale now, everyone. And what was so cool was I actually jotted down what if you like this author, you would also like. And I just want to tell you what they said. Tana French, who I absolutely love. I know. John Grisham's newest release. And Leanne Moriarty from Australia.
Ooh,
So that was the three
Ricky.
that came up after I went in and looked up Mercy Creek.
wow.
I know. I thought, okay, well, this is pretty fabulous. So
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of things online can make you feel a little bit daunted, but that was pretty great, I thought. So.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that with
yeah.
me.
I wrote it down. I was like, oh,
Do you ever look at your reviews, or do you try to avoid them?
I do. I look at them, and I know that there's authors who don't, but I really appreciate the time that people take, even if they don't like my book, that they've taken the time to share their thoughts.
Mhm.
There's always a couple that you look at and you go, there's something not quite right with this person.
Well,
are you sure you read my book?
But seriously, I do look, and if I keep seeing the same thing over and over again, then that tells me that I might have a problem. And I heard one author say one time that if you have all great reviews, you haven't reached enough of an audience. That you've got this niche audience, but until you start getting, it was okay. Now you've started to reach beyond who maybe you wrote it for, and some of them are going to really like it, and some of them are just going to be left meh. So,
wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
so
I hadn't thought of it that way either.
I mean, obviously your audience, if you like police procedurals, you're going to love your series, right? I mean, because you know your stuff. And when I would looked at the reviews today, they were all just like, she knows her stuff. Well, yeah. But there's so many more layers to it too that appeal.
Yeah, there were a lot of layers to this book that we can't talk about.
No, well, I think, a female detective in a more rural area definitely appeals to a certain audience as well. And your protagonist is tough. And in this book, though, you do see some of the stuff that pulls at her, which is so interesting. Especially, and I live in a small town, so that small town environment always appeals to me. Like you said, people know a lot of your stuff in a small town.
And there's a lot of small town politics too.
There is. And then when you rise up and you become in a position of authority in a small town and everybody knows your stuff, it's really different than having being more anonymous in like Fort Lauderdale.
Mhm.
Just like, it's just a really different
Hey,
thing.
I'm on the top of the social scene here in Fort Lauderdale.
Obviously. Hello. Okay, so is there more Jo Wyatt coming?
I have turned in the synopsis for the third, so I'm waiting to hear on that. In the meantime, I'm also working on a domestic suspense.
Wow.
So, I when I
Another
finished-
series or a standalone?
probably a standalone.
Wow.
I really like stretching, and between books, I always read a couple of craft books, and this time I picked up a book that I've had on my bookcase for actually several years, and I had started to read it. I'm not sure why I held on to it actually, but I'm really glad I did. And
Well, what
this
is
time
it?
I
We're
opened-
dying here. What's the book?
Wired for Story.
Oh, I have that. No, over there.
And the first time I picked it up, it's like, I'm not. I just
You weren't
either
there.
didn't get it, or it wasn't.
Yeah.
And this time I opened it up, and certainly my craft has come along enough that it was like, oh.
Oh, okay.
This is
Here
a
we are.
thought. And so it made more sense to me, and that's the beauty of always trying to do better. And I love to learn, and so I'm like I said, I always read at least 2 craft books between books, and I catch up on my to be read pile, because I love seeing what other authors do, and sometimes that too really resonates. Alistair Burke, broke free my fear of doing different POVs, multiple points of view. And I dissect those books. I read it once for pleasure and then just go, there's a lot to learn here. And so if you were to pull out, I think it was the X that did it, I've counted who had how many chapters, how they were staggered, the parts that she used. And so it really helped me with structure. And since then, my pacing has really pulled together.
Wow. So when you mentioned that do you not tend to read while you're in the thick of writing?
That's exactly what I was wondering.
I still do, but the volume is really, really low, comparatively speaking.
It's too much.
Yeah, you don't want to. I've heard some people say that they were afraid of drawing from that. But I also read more than mysteries too, even though, like the last one that I read was Harlan Coben. And I read recently Lee Patrick, Runner. And these were fast paced, in your face. The last book I just finished reading was Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. And which was a fabulous departure from, what I write.
Yeah.
But there's lessons in every story.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And think you're providing that for other people like us.
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right. It's been so fun. I could just do this all night.
Yes.
But Christy has another question for you. Yes.
Yes. So, we have a little bit of a different ending question in our Corks and Conversation 2 episodes, but it also appeals to the food aspect of our loves. And the question is, if you had to choose one of your characters to be your personal chef, who would you choose and why?
Ooh, it would not be Jo, because she's, she when she's on a case, she's just going to El Tecolote and getting, tamales and breakfast burritos and things like that. Which is a sound strategy, I might add.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Squint would be if you like a steak or a burger or something, just really, that's her partner. He'd probably be able to do that. Probably Aiden strikes me as, he knows his way around the kitchen, and you know, we do have a scene where he's cooking for her. And so
And I would love Aiden to cook for me too.
I don't think anyone would really mind that. I mean, it wouldn't be a terrible company.
No. You want to cook for me? No, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm too busy. Okay. All right, Mickey. So our listeners are definitely going to want to know more about you, more about your books and your previous series and the current series. What's the best way for them to find you?
The best way is my website, which is emmybrowning.com. And from there, it's got all of the different things that you could possibly want. You know, it talks about each of the books. It's got bio links if you're so inclined. It tells you how to get in touch with me on social media. And it's got a contact. So, you know, I love hearing from people, and that's the best way to do it.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, we will include all the links for everyone as well.
Great.
And it has been so fun. And I think
know.
the main thing we have to do is a little cheers. We got a little bit left in our glass. There you go.
To your book birthday. Yes.
Thank you, Christie and Cathi. It's always a pleasure being here.
Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you.